Well, the cat's out of the bag. Henry Creel, or One, whichever you prefer, is Vecna. Jamie Campbell Bower is a bit of a method actor, whether he refers to himself that way or not. But it is obvious as he plays as both Henry and Vecna underneath all those prosthetics in Season 4 of Stranger Things. When he first auditioned for the part, he had no idea what was about to go down. As a matter of fact, he wasn't even sent scripts. But finally, Jamie Campbell Bower is able to disclose the main components behind his crucial role in the penultimate season of Netflix's hit Stranger Things 4 Part 1. So stay tuned for shocking revelations, and be forewarned, there are major spoilers as the Vecna actor reveals how they brought the villain to life in Stranger Things Season 4. In a chat with IGN, Bower explained how he, the director and crew, and of course the creators, the Duffer Brothers, Matt and Ross, brought the character to life. It was also revealed what it was like in the Vecna suit and why Henry was immediately drawn to Eleven. Creating Vecna. Henry Creel was born with an ability to sense the supernatural. His father figured he was overly sensitive as a boy. His supernatural ability led him to have issues fitting in with his peers and his teachers and doctors, labeling him as broken. Isolated and alone with only spiders as friends, Henry grew to hate human civilization. He became repulsed by it and did not want to be a part of society's mindless play of eating, sleeping, working, reproducing, and dying. From that point, all he needed was power to become a true supervillain. And then one day he realized he possessed the supernatural ability of telekinesis. As for the actor to get into the mindset of the character, keep in mind getting behind the scenes details is not an easy feat since creators Matt and Ross Duffer are notoriously tight-lipped about the secrets of the series' future. This was the same for the actor Bower. Imagine being told you have the part, but you don't really know what the part entails. So it's not surprising to hear that the role wasn't exactly described to Bower. When asked how the role was described to him, he simply laughed and admitted it wasn't. Truth be told, Bower was given two sides, basically pages to read from, for an audition when he was first approached for the show. One was from a 1996 thriller, Primal Fear, and the other was from Hellraiser, which was one of the Duffer Brothers' primary inspirations for the fourth season. Then, since Bower virtually didn't know anything about Vecna, he engaged in putting the pieces together himself. He went on to make what he calls a Moodboard, or mind map. This method allowed him to fill in the gaps of the mysterious character. In the interview, Bower explained Christopher Lee was on there as Dracula. I had Pinhead obviously on there. I had Freddy Krueger on there. I had the more recent version of Dracula. I had some characters from some of the wild 80s vampires movies. Voldemort was on there as well, and a lot of fire. Bower went on to admit that the period of knowing virtually nothing about continued for about a month. It wasn't until the actor met with the Duffers that he learned more about Stranger Things' new big baddie. I knew very, very little, but somehow managed to piece enough together to be able to formulate the reality of who this person was. So call it fate, luck, intelligence, stupidity, God knows how it happened, but it happened, Bower confessed. So how it was becoming Vecna. First of all, it took prosthetics, and lots of it. The Duffers revealed that Vecna was created with about 90% practical effects with the help of makeup artist Barry Gower. That meant entailing a process of about 7.5 hours long for the primary prosthetics and the makeup process. According to makeup artist Gower, depending on the day, they'd start the process between 3 and 4 a.m. to begin shooting at around 10 a.m. And then they'd go on to shoot for about 10 to 12 hours before spending another hour getting Bower out of the suit. The entire prosthetic suit weighed about 40 pounds, so Bower was forced to get tough to maintain his performance. Bower commented, "It isn't a lot," speaking about the weight, but after a 10-hour day, you start to feel it. Bower went on to confess, "On a more practical level rather than an emotional level, I found that I had to give more. The suit moves with the face quite well, but it's not as pliable. You've got a few centimeters or a centimeter or two between your actual skin and what's able to be seen. So the idea of the eyebrows particularly, you have to make sure that I was really sort of giving it in the facial expression and not what I would maybe give facially if I was just not in a suit. But I think that was great, was that underneath it all is the intention of this real hatred and this real resentment, and that was coming through." In a separate interview, but also with IGN, the Duffer Brothers explained that one of the reasons they wanted to use practical effects for Vecna instead of computer-generated ones was that they wanted their actors to have something tangible to interact with on set. And some of those actors were definitely terrified upon seeing Bower in Vecna mode. Bauer recalled, "I am pacing around often beforehand, saying some pretty vile things under my breath about whoever's in front of me, and just vile things in general pretty much up until action when I've got to say the actual lines. The poor actor playing Chrissy, Grace Van Dien, she was terrified. Sadie Sink's really tough. She's a tough person, so she was kind of alright. But Millie Bobby Brown cried. The first time that Millie saw me, she burst into tears. It was in the rehearsal and she literally just burst into tears." Getting inside Vecna's head. Bauer admitted that on an emotional perspective, there wasn't a drastic change in how he had to balance his performance as Henry and Vecna. He believes that deep down they're not very different. Henry already had a demented, resentful view of the world before he was turned into the repulsive upside-down creature. The main difference was the creepy aesthetics, and once that transformation did happen after his battle with Eleven, his true dark villain arc became a heart-piercing, fear-driving monster that no one will ever forget. To understand the psyche of the upside-down creature, Bauer said, "I think with Henry, there is still a bit of humanity in him. You might be able to kind of calm him down and talk him around, but once she sends him to his demise, as it were, or into his moment of change, I think the humanity is gone. It's just full-on hatred, full-on resentment that's already added to this feeling of the world's an effed up place enough as it is." The relationship that Henry has with Eleven progressed inside Hawkins' lab. As that big moment of change takes place, it is clear that Vecna's intentions are to manipulate her and use her to escape. Bauer says that Henry sees himself in her. She is as powerful as he is, and she's one of a kind. But like he was ostracized among his family, Eleven experienced the same inside the lab. This compels him to have a deeper connection with Eleven. Bauer gave further details. "I think while she is the key for him to be able to escape, I think there comes this feeling of truth, and when he says, 'Imagine what we could do together, we could really reshape the world.' It's funny, when I was developing it, I was like, oh, he just wants to sort of go off and have a really nice life doing nothing, being away from everyone with Eleven. But I think ultimately he would want to take over the world with her." To also get into the psyche of Vecna, it's necessary to take a look at his victims as well. There's actually a common theme with all of Vecna's victims. All of them appear to be weakened in some way, psychologically that is. Max, for example, is still dealing with Billy's death, and Nancy is still dealing with Barb's. Bauer thinks that goes back to Henry's upbringing, particularly when he went into his parents' mind, especially his father's. He was able to focus and see the things they had done in their past and what they were hiding from the world. To sum up his demented mentality, Bauer explains he goes after people predominantly with guilt and with shame. When we go through these periods of guilt and shame, it does weaken us because it becomes an obsessive thought and it's an uncomfortable feeling. And so I think it's him seeking rightful vengeance is what I would call it. Now we will see if Vecna gets that vengeance when Stranger Things Season 4 Part 2 arrives on Netflix on July 1st. So stick around and find out, and tune in next week as more is revealed.